The bridge of the USS Valiant was quiet during the night shift. Captain Jack Morrison sat in his command chair, reviewing reports on his datapad. The ship had been on patrol for 3 weeks now, watching the outer sectors of human territory. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Earth had joined the galactic community only 3 years ago. When the aliens first made contact, they were surprised at how quickly humans learned their technology. Most species took hundreds of years to build their first faster-than-light ships. Humans did it in 18 months. The aliens called Earth a death world, a planet so dangerous that only the toughest species could survive there. They said it made humans different from everyone else in the galaxy. Lieutenant Amy Peterson worked at the communication station. She was young, only 25, but good at her job. Her fingers moved across the holographic controls, checking channels and monitoring automated signals. Space was big and mostly empty. Most nights, nothing happened at all. Then her console started beeping. It was urgent and loud, cutting through the quiet of the bridge. Amy's eyes went wide as she read the incoming data. "Captain, I'm picking up something," she said. Her voice was tense. "It's a distress beacon. The signal is using Galactic Council encryption." Jack was out of his chair immediately. He moved to her station and looked at the display. The message was repeating over and over, broadcasting to anyone who could hear it. The translation computer turned the alien language into English. "This is cargo vessel Tranquil Wanderer, Registry Talum Prime. We are under attack by Kreth raiders. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Life support failing. Please, anyone who can hear this, we have younglings aboard. 247 souls. Please help us." The voice in the message was filled with fear. Even through the translation, Jack could hear the panic and desperation. Someone was dying out there, and they were begging for help. The bridge crew all turned to look at their captain. Everyone knew about the Kreth. They were pirates who attacked unarmed ships, stealing cargo and sometimes taking prisoners to sell as slaves. They were ruthless and violent. Most species in the galaxy avoided them. The Galactic Council had talked about stopping them for years, but nothing ever happened. "Helm, plot a course to their location," Jack ordered. "Maximum speed." Lieutenant Kyle Harper was at the navigation station. He quickly entered the coordinates, but then hesitated. "Sir, that position is 3 star systems away from our patrol route. We would need permission from command to go that far. Then get me command right now." Amy opened a channel to Luna Base, the military headquarters on Earth's moon. Within 2 minutes, Admiral Linda Hayes appeared on the main view screen. She was in her 60s with silver hair pulled back tight. Behind her, the operations center was busy with officers working at their stations. "Captain Morrison, I see your request to break from patrol," she said. Her voice was calm and professional. "I assume you have a good reason." "We received a distress call, Admiral. A Talum cargo ship is under attack by Kreth raiders. They have children on board. 247 people total." Linda nodded slowly. "Are you aware that the distress signal was sent to everyone in range? 7 council species received the same call. All 7 have declined to respond. They say it's too dangerous and not their responsibility." Jack felt anger rising in his chest. "Yes, Admiral, I know. And you still want to go? There are children dying out there. We have the weapons and the speed to reach them. If we don't help, no one will." For a moment, Linda just looked at him through the screen. Then a small smile crossed her face. "I was hoping you would say that. You have my authorization, Captain. But you won't be going alone." The tactical display on the main screen changed. It showed a map of nearby space. Green dots started appearing across multiple sectors. Each dot was a human ship changing course. "I'm mobilizing every vessel within range," Linda continued. "Frigates, destroyers, cruisers. We'll have 37 ships converging on that location within the hour. If the galaxy won't answer a distress call, then we'll show them how Earth does things." Jack felt pride swell in his chest. This was why he served. This was what humanity stood for. "You'll have tactical command until Admiral Carter arrives with the Lincoln," Linda said. "Standard engagement rules apply, but remember something, Morrison. The whole galaxy is watching. Show them what Deathworlders can do when someone needs help. The view screen went dark. Jack turned to his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. He could see the determination on their faces. They knew this might be dangerous. They knew they might have to fight. But not one of them looked afraid. "All hands, this is the captain," Jack said over the ship-wide intercom. "We are responding to a distress call. A civilian ship is under attack by pirates. There are children on that ship, and they need our help. We are going to give it to them. Battle stations. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, alarms began to sound. Crew members ran to their positions. The weapons officers powered up the railguns and missile systems. Engineers checked the shields and engines. Medical teams prepared the sick bay for possible casualties. Kyle looked up from his navigation console. "Course plotted, Captain. We can reach them in 40 minutes at maximum speed." "Take us in," Jack ordered. The Valiant's engines flared bright blue as the ship accelerated. Space twisted around them as they entered faster than light travel. The stars stretched into lines and then vanished completely. Jack sat back in his command chair and pulled up the information they had on the Kreth. They used old ships, fast but not heavily armed. They relied on surprise and fear rather than actual military power. Against unarmed cargo vessels, they were deadly. Against a human warship with modern weapons and trained crew, they would be outmatched. But there were 3 Kreth ships according to the distress signal. The Valiant would arrive first before the rest of the fleet. That meant they might have to face all 3 alone for a few minutes. It would be dangerous, but Jack didn't hesitate. Those children needed help now, not in an hour when backup arrived. Amy turned from her station. "Captain, we're receiving messages from the other human ships. They're all acknowledging the mission, the Constitution, the Defiance, the Liberty. Everyone is coming." Jack nodded. "Good. Send them the tactical data we have. Tell them to come in hot and ready to fight." The minutes ticked by slowly. Jack watched the countdown timer on his display. 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. "Approaching the target coordinates," Kyle announced. "Dropping to normal space in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Valiant shuddered slightly as it fell out of faster-than-light travel. The view screen showed the Kelmar system ahead of them. And there, hanging in space like a wounded animal, was the Tranquil Wanderer. The alien ship was larger than the Valiant, built for cargo rather than combat. Its hull was scarred with weapon impacts and burn marks. Atmosphere was venting from several breaches, creating small clouds of frozen gas around the ship. 3 smaller ships circled the cargo vessel like sharks. They were painted red and black, the colors of Kreth raiding clans. As Jack watched, one of them fired another shot at the Tranquil Wanderer. The cargo ship's shields flickered and died. "Reading multiple life signs on the cargo ship," Amy reported. "But they're weak, and the Kreth have attached boarding tubes. They're inside the ship." Jack's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. They had arrived just in time. A few more minutes and everyone on that ship would have been dead or captured. Weapons, lock targeting solutions on all 3 hostiles. Shields to maximum power. Open a channel to the Kreth ships. Jack kept his eyes locked on the Kreth captain. The countdown timer on his display showed 20 seconds remaining. The alien pirate seemed amused, like this was all a joke to him. He had probably threatened hundreds of ships before, and they had all backed down. He expected the humans to do the same. "We are 3 ships to your 1, the Kreth captain continued. "Your shields may be strong, but you cannot save them. We will finish our work here. Leave now, human, and we will let you run away with your life." 10 seconds, Jack said calmly. The Kreth captain's amusement began to fade. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been confusion. "You truly wish to die for strangers? For weak creatures you have never met?" 5 seconds. "This is foolish. We will destroy you." "Time's up." Jack made a sharp gesture with his hand. "Fire." The USS Valiant's railguns opened fire. Magnetic coils accelerated tungsten projectiles to incredible speeds. The rounds crossed the distance between the ships in less than a second. They hit the first Kreth vessel with devastating force. The pirate ship's shields flared bright orange, trying to absorb the impact. but they were designed to stop energy weapons like lasers and plasma bolts. Solid metal projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed were something different entirely. The shields collapsed after the first volley. The second volley punched through the Kreth ship's hull. Atmosphere exploded out into space. The ship spun out of control, its engines dying. Emergency lights flickered across its surface as the crew inside scrambled for survival pods. The other two Kreth vessels immediately broke off their boarding actions. Warning alarms must have been screaming on their bridges. They had expected an easy target, a single human ship they could scare away. Instead, they had just watched their sister ship get crippled in seconds. Plasma bolts lanced out from the remaining Kreth ships, bright green streaks of superheated matter. They splashed against the Valiant's shields, causing ripples of energy across the defensive screen. But human shield technology had been designed for warfare on a scale the Kreth couldn't imagine. The attacks barely registered on the power grid. Shields holding at 98%, reported Lieutenant Chris Baker from the engineering station. No damage to the hull. Their weapons aren't strong enough to penetrate. Kyle's navigation console beeped urgently. Captain, multiple faster-than-light signatures detected. Lots of them. It's the fleet, sir. They're arriving right on schedule. Space around the Tranquil Wanderer suddenly filled with new ships. The USS Constitution appeared first, a heavy cruiser 3 times the size of the Valiant. Then came the Defiance, the Liberty, the Independence. One after another, human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and formed a battle line. Within 60 seconds, 37 human vessels surrounded the Kreth raiders. Each one had weapons locked and ready to fire. The tactical display on Jack's screen looked like a net closing around 3 small fish. Admiral Paul Carter's face appeared on the view screen, replacing the image of the Kreth captain. Paul was older than Jack, with gray hair and a scar across his left cheek from an old training accident. He looked calm and completely in control. Captain Morrison, good work holding the line, Paul said. We'll take it from here. He paused. Then his image shifted to broadcast on all frequencies, including the Kreth ships. Kreth vessels, this is Admiral Paul Carter of the human fleet. Cease all hostile actions immediately. Release your captives and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. On the tactical display, Jack watched as the Kreth ships held their position. They were probably having frantic discussions on their bridges, trying to figure out what to do. They had never faced anything like this before. Pirates survived by hitting soft targets and running before military forces could respond. But the humans had responded in minutes, not hours or days, and they had brought overwhelming force. One of the Kreth ships fired its engines, trying to break away and escape. It was a fast ship, designed for quick raids and faster getaways. Under normal circumstances, it might have had a chance. But human ships were faster. The destroyer Liberty moved to intercept, its engines flaring as it matched the Kreth vessel's acceleration. A tractor beam shot out, a cone of gravitational force that latched onto the pirate ship and held it in place. The Kreth captain tried to break free, his engines straining at maximum power. It was useless. The Liberty had him locked tight. Within seconds, 2 more human ships had added their tractor beams. The pirate ship hung in space like an insect caught in a web. The third Kreth vessel saw what happened and immediately cut its engines. The fight was over. They knew it. Everyone knew it. Sir, the Tranquil Wanderer is hailing us, Amy said. Audio only. Their communication systems are badly damaged. Put them through, Jack ordered. A weak voice came through the bridge speakers. It was speaking in Standard, the common language of the Galactic Council, but with a heavy accent. The translator cleaned it up so the crew could understand clearly. Human ships, this is Captain Velrus of the Tranquil Wanderer. We cannot believe you came. No one answers distress calls anymore. No one has answered in 50 years. But you came. You actually came. You saved us. You saved our children. Jack felt something tight in his chest loosen. They had made it in time. Captain Velrus, we're sending medical teams to you now. Hold on. You're safe, I promise. Around the Valiant, human ships were launching small craft. Medical shuttles with red crosses painted on their hulls headed toward the damaged cargo ship. Marine assault shuttles followed them, carrying armed troops who would clear out any Kreth pirates still on board. Jack stood up from his command chair. Amy, you have the bridge. I'm going to the transporter room. I want to see that ship for myself. The transporter was human technology, not something they had learned from the Galactic Council. Humans had developed it independently during their rapid push into space. It could move people and objects from one place to another almost instantly, breaking them down into energy and rebuilding them at the destination. Jack materialized on the Tranquil Wanderer's bridge with a security team. The scene that greeted him made his blood run cold. The bridge was wrecked, control panels were smashed, smoke hung in the air from electrical fires. And there was blood on the floor, the purple-blue blood of the Talum people. A Talum crew member was slumped in the captain's chair. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with pale blue skin and large eyes. Her right arm was bent at an unnatural angle. Burns covered the left side of her face. But she was alive. Captain Velrus? Jack asked. She nodded weakly. You are Captain Morrison. I heard your voice. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We need to get you to our medical bay. Jack gestured to his security team. They carefully lifted Velrus from her chair and onto a stretcher. My crew, Velrus said. My passengers, the children, are they safe? My people are searching the ship now. We'll find everyone, I promise. Jack's radio crackled. It was Sergeant Danny Collins, leader of the Marine teams. Captain, this is Collins. We've secured the main decks. The Kreth are retreating to their boarding tubes. We're letting them go and sealing the hatches behind them. No point in a firefight when we already have them trapped. Good work, Sergeant. What about casualties? There was a pause. It's bad, sir. Heavy casualties among the Talum crew. They tried to fight back with emergency tools and bare hands. The Kreth cut them down. But we're finding survivors in the emergency shelters. They managed to seal themselves in before the pirates could reach them. What about the children? We're heading to Deck 7 now. That's where the passengers were quartered. I'll report back in 5 minutes. Jack looked around the destroyed bridge. The Talum had fought hard to protect their ship and their people. Against the Kreth raiders, they never had a chance. But they had bought time. Precious minutes that allowed the distress signal to reach someone who would answer. More crew members were being brought to the bridge for transport to the human ships. Each one was injured. Each one was alive because humans had decided that a distress call was not something to ignore. Jack's radio crackled again. Captain, this is Collins. We've reached Deck 7. The emergency shelter is sealed from the inside. The kids are alive in there, but the door is fused shut. We're cutting through now. Be careful, Sergeant. We don't want to cause a hull breach. Understood. Sir, we're using precision cutting tools. Stand by. Jack could hear the tension in the Marine's voice. They were so close. The children were right there, just on the other side of that door. But one mistake could kill them all. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Then Collins came back on the radio, and his voice was different. Softer. Relieved. We're through, Captain. The kids are scared but alive. Medical teams are checking them now. It looks like they sealed themselves in right when the attack started. Smart thinking saved their lives. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Good work, Danny. Get them to the shuttles. Let's bring them home. Around the Tranquil Wanderer, the human fleet maintained its positions. The Kreth ships were secured with tractor beams. Marines were boarding them now, taking the pirates into custody. It had been less than 30 minutes since the Valiant first arrived. In that time, they had stopped an attack, saved 247 lives, and captured 3 pirate vessels. Admiral Carter's voice came through Jack's radio. Morrison, preliminary reports are coming in. The Talum suffered 43 dead, mostly crew who fought to protect the passengers. Another 60 injured, some critically. But without our intervention, they all would have died. You did good work today. It wasn't just me, sir. It was the whole fleet. Everyone who answered the call. True enough, but you were first. You didn't hesitate. That matters. Paul paused. The Galactic Council is already sending us messages. They want to know what we think we're doing. They're not happy that we mobilized so many ships without consulting them first. Jack felt anger rising again. We consulted them by listening to their response to the distress call. They chose to do nothing. We chose differently. I agree completely. But we're going to have to answer. Faux Sergeant Danny Collins moved through the damaged corridors of the Tranquil Wanderer, with his rifle raised and ready. His squad followed close behind, their boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. The ship's power systems were failing, and the air smelled like smoke and burnt plastic. Danny had been a Marine for 8 years. He had trained for combat situations, practiced boarding actions dozens of times. But training was different from reality. Training didn't show you the bodies of innocent people who had died trying to protect their families. A Talum crew member lay in the corridor ahead. He was male, dressed in a maintenance uniform. His purple-blue blood had pooled around him. In his hand was a heavy wrench, the only weapon he had been able to find. He had tried to fight off the Kreth Raiders. It hadn't been enough. "This is wrong," said Corporal Brett Anderson, one of Danny's squad members. Brett was young, only 22, and this was his first real combat situation. They were just trying to do their jobs. They weren't soldiers. "That's what makes them brave," Danny replied quietly. "They weren't trained for this, but they fought anyway. They bought time for others to hide." Danny's helmet radio crackled. It was Lieutenant Sophie Grant, the medical officer attached to his unit. "Sergeant, I'm reading life signs in the emergency shelter ahead. The door shows as sealed. Multiple individuals inside, including small-sized signatures consistent with juvenile Talum." "Copy that. We're moving to your position now." They found Sophie kneeling beside another injured Talum. This one was female, barely conscious. Her legs were bent wrong, and there were burns across her torso. Sophie's medical scanner painted a holographic display in the air, showing internal injuries that would have been fatal without immediate treatment. "How is she?" Danny asked. "She'll live. I've stabilized her and given her medication for the pain, but she needs a proper medical facility soon." Sophie looked up at Danny. Her face was hard, angry. The Kreth did this deliberately. These weren't combat injuries. They hurt these people for fun. Danny felt his jaw tighten. He had heard stories about the Kreth, how they enjoyed causing pain and fear. Seeing it in person was different. It made him want to go back to those captured pirate ships and do some damage of his own. But that wasn't his job. His job was to save the survivors. The injured Talum grabbed Sophie's arm weakly. She said something in her own language. The translator in Danny's helmet turned it into English. "The children. Deck 7. Please help them." "We will," Sophie promised. "I swear it." Danny led his squad deeper into the ship. Deck 7 had been converted into passenger quarters for refugees. According to the ship's records, there were 83 children on board, along with their families. They had been fleeing a famine on one of the Talum colony worlds, hoping to reach a safer planet with more resources. The corridor leading to Deck 7 showed signs of fighting, blast marks on the walls. More bodies. The Talum had made their last stand here, protecting the entrance to the passenger area. They had held long enough for the children to seal themselves in the emergency shelter. The shelter door was thick metal, designed to protect against hull breaches and fires. Someone inside had used an emergency plasma torch to fuse the locking mechanism, making it impossible for the Kreth to force it open. Smart thinking that had saved lives. "Brett, get that door open," Danny ordered. "But carefully. We don't want to accidentally hurt anyone inside." Brett pulled out a precision cutting tool. It was designed for delicate work, removing the fused metal bit by bit without causing any damage to the structure behind it. The process was slow, taking several minutes. Every second felt like an hour to Danny. Finally, the metal began to peel back. Brett worked carefully, making sure not to create any sharp edges that could hurt the children inside. When the opening was large enough, Sophie pushed forward, her medical scanner active. The emergency shelter was small, maybe 20 feet by 30 feet. It was packed with small bodies huddled together. Young Talum, their skin colors ranging from pale blue to deep purple, stared at the armored humans with wide, terrified eyes. They were shaking, clutching each other. Sophie removed her helmet so they could see her face. "It's okay. We're here to help. You're safe now." "Can anyone understand me?" One of the older children stepped forward. She looked to be about 12 in human years, though Danny knew Talum aged differently. She was trying to be brave, but her whole body was trembling. "You are humans," the child said in Standard. Her voice was small and scared. "We heard stories about your species. They say you are dangerous, that your world is terrible and makes you violent." Danny lowered his rifle and removed his own helmet. His face was scarred from old injuries, rough from years of hard service. But he smiled at the children as gently as he could. "We can be dangerous," he said honestly. "When we need to be. When bad people hurt innocent ones. But right now, we're the people who came when nobody else would. You're safe now, I promise." The child stared at him for a long moment. Then her face crumpled and tears started flowing down her cheeks. All at once, every child in the shelter began crying. It was the sound of fear and stress finally being released, the terror of hours trapped in the dark with pirates trying to break through the door. Sophie moved among them, checking each child with her scanner. Most were dehydrated and scared but physically unhurt. A few showed signs of minor injuries, probably from the initial attack when they fled to the shelter. "Listen to me," Sophie said in a calm, steady voice. "We're going to take you to our ships. They're safe and warm with food and water. Your parents who survived are already there, waiting for you. But we need to move quickly, okay? Can you do that?" The children nodded. They formed a line, the older ones helping the younger ones. Danny's squad surrounded them protectively as they began the journey back through the damaged ship. As they walked, one small child reached up and took Danny's hand. The little Talum couldn't have been more than 5 years old. He looked up at the big human soldier with complete trust. "Are the bad people gone?" the child asked. "Yes. They can't hurt you anymore. We made sure of it. Thank you for coming. No one usually comes." Those simple words hit Danny harder than any weapon. This child had grown up in a galaxy where distress calls went unanswered, where pirates attacked and no one helped. The idea that rescue was possible was foreign to them. That was going to change. The Marine team brought the children to the hangar bay, where shuttles waited. Human medical personnel helped each child aboard, wrapping them in thermal blankets and giving them water. Some of the children were reunited with parents who had survived. The reunions were tearful and joyful. Back on the USS Valiant, the medical bay had been transformed into a mass casualty ward. Dr. Helen Martinez led a team of 20 medical staff, treating injuries they had never seen before. The Talum physiology was different from humans in many ways. Their bones were lighter, their organs arranged differently, their blood chemistry unique. But pain was universal. Fear was universal. The need for comfort and care was universal. The human doctors and nurses worked with skill and compassion, adapting their techniques on the fly. Captain Velrus lay on a medical bed, their body wrapped in regenerative bandages. The worst of their injuries had been stabilized, but full healing would take time. Jack Morrison stood beside the bed, holding a cup of warm liquid that the food synthesizer had created based on Talum dietary requirements. "How are you feeling?" Jack asked. "Better than I should be," Velrus replied weakly. "Your doctors are skilled. They saved many lives today, lives that should have been lost. That's what we do. It's who we are." Velrus's large eyes focused on Jack with intensity. "I need to understand something, Captain. Your species is so new to the galaxy. You joined the Council only 3 years ago. Most species your age are still learning basic space travel. But you have powerful ships, advanced weapons, skilled soldiers and doctors. And you came immediately when we called. Why?" Jack sat down in a chair beside the bed. It was a good question, one he had thought about many times. "On Earth, we have a saying," he began. "It goes like this: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We heard your call. We had the ability to help. That made it our responsibility." "But the cost," Velrus protested. "The danger. The Kreth could have destroyed you. They have destroyed military ships before. Maybe they could have. But we're from a death world, Captain. Do you know what that means? It means we evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme weather. Everything on Earth was dangerous. We learned to fight back. We learned to protect the weak from the strong. We learned that survival means helping each other. It became part of our nature. Velrus was quiet for a long moment. The council will hear about this. They will have questions. Some will be angry that you acted without permission. Jack smiled slightly. Let them ask their questions. We'll answer honestly. We responded to a distress call. We saved lives. If that makes some people angry, I can live with that. You have changed something today, Velrus said softly. For 200 years, the Kreth have raided ships. For 200 years, no one stopped them. Victims called for help and no one came. Today, someone came. People across the galaxy will hear about this. They will wonder why humans answered when their own governments did not. Good. Maybe it will make those governments think about their choices. A nurse came over and checked Velrus's vital signs. She adjusted the medication drip and made notes on her datapad. Captain, your patient needs rest. The regenerative treatment works better during sleep. Jack stood up. I'll let you rest. But before I go, I want you to know something. Every person on this ship volunteered for this mission. Every ship in the fleet came because they wanted to. Humans don't leave people behind. We don't ignore calls for help. That's a promise. As Jack left the medical bay, he passed rows of beds with injured Talum. Human medical staff moved among them, treating wounds and offering comfort. In one corner, a nurse sat with a group of children, telling them a story to help them calm down. The children listened with wide eyes, no longer afraid of the strange aliens who had saved them. Back on the bridge, Amy turned from her communications console. Captain, we're receiving messages from across the sector. Other ships are asking if the report about the rescue is true. Civilian vessels, merchant convoys, even some government transports. They want to know if humans really responded to the distress call. Tell them yes, Jack said. Tell them that from now on, if someone calls for help and we can reach them, we will come, every time. The Galactic Council chamber on Unity Station was enormous. The ceiling rose 200 feet above the floor, covered in a holographic display that showed the stars in real time. Tall pillars lined the walls, each one representing a different member species. There were 37 species in the Council, civilizations that had been traveling the stars for hundreds or thousands of years. Ambassador Catherine Wells stood at the human podium, which was new and still looked out of place among the ancient architecture. She wore a simple dark blue suit, professional but not flashy. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Before becoming a diplomat, Catherine had been a criminal prosecutor. She knew how to handle hostile audiences. Today, the hostility was clear. All around the chamber, alien representatives watched her with expressions ranging from confusion to anger. Some were concerned. A few looked curious. But most seemed unhappy that humans had acted without consulting them first. Council Speaker Theron stood at the central podium. He was Vishtari, a species with scales that shifted colors based on their mood. Right now, his scales showed orange and red, indicating stress and displeasure. He raised his 6 arms in the traditional gesture for demanding attention. Ambassador Wells, Theron began, his voice echoing through the chamber. This council has reviewed the incident in the Kelmar system. While we acknowledge that human forces successfully rescued the vessel Tranquil Wanderer, we must address serious concerns about your species' actions. Catherine stood calmly, waiting. She knew the first rule of negotiation was to let the other side talk first. Let them show their position before revealing your own. The mobilization of 37 military vessels represents a significant deployment of force, Theron continued. Several council members are concerned about humanity's aggressive response to what was, ultimately, a piracy incident. The Kreth, while distasteful, are a known quantity. Your actions have disrupted a delicate balance. Catherine let the silence stretch for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Speaker Theron, could you clarify what you mean by a delicate balance? Councillor Vethix of the Moran Collective spoke up without waiting to be recognized. The Moran were mechanical beings, their bodies built rather than born. Vethix's voice came through a synthesizer that gave it an emotionless quality. The Kreth prey on the weak, yes, but they do so predictably. Shipping companies know which routes are dangerous. They can hire security or avoid those areas. The system works. Your intervention has made the Kreth unpredictable. They may escalate their attacks in retaliation. Catherine looked directly at Vethix. So your solution is to let them continue attacking civilian ships? To allow children to die because stopping them might be inconvenient? You oversimplify the situation, Vethix replied. Military action is expensive. Ships cost resources. Trained crews take years to develop. Most species cannot simply mobilize fleets at a moment's notice. We have protocols, procedures, committees that must approve such actions. Your species ignores these safeguards in favor of emotional responses. Catherine pulled up a holographic display above her podium. It showed images of the Talum survivors. Children with wide, frightened eyes. Injured crew members being treated by human doctors. Families reunited after thinking they would never see each other again. 247 lives, Catherine said quietly. That's not an emotional response. That's basic morality. You received the same distress call we did. 7 council species heard those children screaming for help. 7 species decided that the cost was too high. We decided differently. Councillor Malera of the Xanthian Concord spoke next. Malera was one of the few council members who had supported humanity's admission 3 years ago. Her species looked similar to humans, but with silver skin and no hair. Her voice was gentle, almost sad. Ambassador Wells, please try to understand our perspective. Your world shaped you into what you are. You call Earth a death world, and you're correct. The conditions there would kill most species within days. You faced predators, diseases, weather extremes that we cannot imagine. This made you into warriors, into a species that solves problems through force. But the rest of the galaxy has found different ways. We have peace through caution, through careful diplomacy, through not acting rashly. Your methods threaten this carefully built system. Catherine's expression softened slightly. She respected Malera, even when they disagreed. Councillor Malera, I appreciate your perspective. I truly do. But I have to ask you something. Peace for whom? The Kreth have been raiding civilian vessels for 200 years. Thousands of beings have died. How many more will die while this council debates protocols and procedures? The galaxy is vast, Theron said firmly. We cannot save everyone. We must make difficult choices about where to commit resources. Then let me make our position clear, Catherine said, her voice growing stronger. Humanity will respond to distress calls, every single time. We don't care if it's inconvenient. We don't care if it disrupts your balance. When someone calls for help and we have the ability to answer, we will come. That's not a threat to this council. That's a promise to every civilian in the galaxy. And if the council forbids such actions, Vethix challenged. If we pass regulations that prohibit unauthorized military responses? Catherine smiled, but there was steel in it. Then the council will have to enforce those regulations. I wonder how that conversation would go with your civilian populations when they learn you're trying to stop rescues. When they learn their own governments heard distress calls and chose to do nothing while humans saved lives. The chamber erupted in noise. Different species began talking at once. Some in their own languages, some in standard. Some representatives looked angry, others looked thoughtful. A few were clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. Theron waved his arms, calling for order. This session is adjourned. We will reconvene in 3 days to discuss the implications of humanity's statement. Ambassador Wells, you are dismissed. Catherine gathered her datapad and walked toward the exit. The human section was near the entrance, a reminder of how new they were to galactic politics. As she passed through the doorway, Councillor Malera caught up with her in the corridor outside. That was either very brave or very foolish, Ambassador, Malera said quietly. Maybe both. But someone had to say it. You have made enemies today, powerful ones. Vethix has considerable influence, and he does not forget slights. Catherine stopped walking and turned to face Malera. We made a promise to the Talum, to every civilian ship out there. That promise is more important than political influence. I understand, but understand this as well. Not all council members think like Vethix. There are many of us who have wondered if we have become too cautious, too focused on maintaining stability at any cost. Your actions today have started conversations that some of us have wanted to have for a long time. What kind of conversations? Malera glanced around to make sure they were alone in the corridor. Conversations about what the council should be, about whether our purpose is to maintain the status quo or to actually protect the people we represent. Your species has only been here 3 years, but you've already challenged assumptions we've held for centuries. Some of us are grateful for that, even if we can't say so publicly yet. Catherine felt a small surge of hope. How many feel this way? Enough to matter. Give us time. Change in the council happens slowly, but it does happen. Your speech today will echo through many homeworlds. Civilians across the galaxy will hear about the human fleet that answered a distress call. They will ask their own governments why they didn't do the same. And in the meantime? In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Keep answering those calls. Keep showing the galaxy what's possible when someone chooses to act instead of debate. But be careful, Catherine. You've put a target on humanity's back. There are forces in the galaxy that benefit from the current system. They will not be happy about your disruptions. After Malera left, Catherine made her way to the human embassy section of Unity Station. It was a small office compared to the grand halls occupied by older species. But it was home. Her assistant, a young man named Greg Nelson, met her at the door with a datapad full of messages. Ambassador, you've received communications from 43 different species. Most are official complaints, but 7 are requesting private meetings. And there's something else you need to see. Greg pulled up a video on the main screen. It showed news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Different species, different languages, but all reporting the same story. The human fleet that had rescued the Tranquil Wanderer. Images of injured Talum being treated by human doctors. Video of children being carried to safety by human marines. It's everywhere, Greg said. Every news network, every information channel. The story is spreading faster than we expected. And Ambassador, the public response is overwhelming. Civilians across the galaxy are calling their representatives, demanding to know why their governments didn't respond to the distress call. Catherine watched the broadcast with growing amazement. She saw Talum families giving interviews, praising the humans who had saved them. She saw other species, beings she had never met, saying that the Council should follow humanity's example. There's more, Greg continued. We're receiving requests from shipping companies across multiple sectors. They want human escorts for their vessels. They're willing to pay for protection. And several colony worlds have asked if Earth would be willing to station defense forces in their systems. That's a lot to process. What's the official response from Earth? Secretary General Barnes is drafting a policy statement now. But the early word is that we'll accept requests for protection on a case-by-case basis. We're not trying to build an empire, but we're not going to turn away people who ask for help. Catherine sat down at her desk, feeling the weight of what had happened. 3 days ago, she had been dealing with routine trade negotiations and minor diplomatic issues. Now, humanity had essentially challenged the entire galactic order. Greg, set up those private meetings. I want to know who's reaching out and what they want. And get me a communication line to Admiral Hayes on Luna Base. The military needs to be ready for whatever comes next. Already done. Admiral Hayes is waiting for your call. The holographic display activated, showing Linda Hayes in her office. Behind her, through the window, Earth was visible in all its blue and white beauty. The death world that had forged a species into something the galaxy had never seen before. Ambassador, Linda said, I saw your speech to the Council. Well done. Thank you, Admiral. But I'm worried about the consequences. We've essentially declared that we'll act independently of Council authority. We've declared that we'll save lives when we can. There's a difference. And frankly, if the Council has a problem with that, they can bring it up at the next meeting. Until then, my fleet will continue to respond to distress calls. Are you prepared for potential military conflict? Some Council species might try to enforce restrictions. Linda's expression hardened. If any species wants to stop us from conducting rescue operations, they're welcome to try. But I don't think it will come to that. The public pressure is too intense. No government wants to be seen as the people who stopped rescue missions. I hope you're right. So do I, but hope isn't a strategy. We're increasing our fleet readiness and accelerating the construction of new vessels. If we're going to be the galaxy's rescue service, we need the reason 2 months had passed since the Kelmar system incident. Captain Jack Morrison stood in the observation deck of the USS Valiant, watching as a long line of merchant vessels passed through the sector. Each ship had something new painted on their hulls alongside their original registry markings. A simple flag, the blue and white of Earth, with stars representing the countries that had united to reach space. The meaning was clear. These ships were declaring themselves under human protection. They were saying that if they called for help, they expected humans to answer. And humans would. Lieutenant Amy Peterson joined Jack at the window. She carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to him. "Another convoy, Captain. That's the 5th one this week." Command estimates were now protecting over 2,000 civilian vessels across 30 sectors. "Can we handle that many?" Jack asked. Fleet Command says yes, but just barely. We're stretched thin. Every ship is running extended patrols. Crews are tired. But no one is complaining. Everyone understands what we're doing. Jack sipped his coffee and watched the merchant ships pass by. They came from a dozen different species. Talum vessels carrying refugees, Xanthian cargo ships hauling medical supplies, even a few Moran transports despite their government's official disapproval of human military actions. "How are the crew holding up?" Jack asked. "Better than expected. Morale is actually high. People feel like they're doing something important. We're not just patrolling empty space anymore. We're protecting lives." Amy paused. "Did you hear about the Lincoln? They responded to another distress call yesterday. A colony ship with engine failure drifting toward a star. Admiral Carter got them out with minutes to spare. Casualties? None. Everyone survived. The colonists were Vishtari, same species as Council Speaker Theron. He hasn't made any public statements about it yet, but I bet he's having some uncomfortable conversations with his constituents." Jack smiled slightly. The Vishtari government had been one of the loudest critics of human military actions. But when Vishtari civilians were in danger, humans had saved them without hesitation. Politics was one thing. Lives were another. The intercom on the wall beeped. "Captain Morrison, you have an incoming transmission from Luna Base. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you privately. Patch it through to my ready room." Jack made his way to his private office, a small space just off the bridge. The holographic display activated, showing Admiral Linda Hayes. She looked tired but pleased. "Jack, I wanted to give you a personal update on something big. The Secretary General is making an announcement in 2 hours. We're establishing a new branch of Earth's military, the Humanitarian Response Fleet." "A separate fleet just for rescue operations?" Jack asked. "Exactly. 50 new vessels built specifically for disaster relief and emergency response. Fast ships with advanced medical facilities, powerful sensors, and enough defensive weapons to handle pirates, but not designed for full military combat. They'll work alongside the regular fleet, but with a different mission focus." Jack felt excitement building. "That's incredible. How did they get funding approved so quickly?" "Public support. The footage from the Tranquil Wanderer rescue went viral across Earth. People saw what we did and they wanted more of it. Congress passed the funding bill with 90% approval. The president signed it the same day. When will the new ships be ready?" "First batch launches in 4 months. Full fleet operational in 18 months. We're recruiting volunteers now. Doctors, engineers, pilots, anyone with rescue experience. The response has been overwhelming." Linda paused. "There's something else. 5 council species announced their own humanitarian initiatives this morning. The Xanthian Concord is converting civilian ships into mobile hospitals. The Talum are creating an emergency response network. Even the Moran, despite their government's complaints, are developing new rescue technologies." Jack leaned back in his chair, processing this information. "We started something. A real movement." "You did. The Kelmar rescue showed the galaxy that responding to distress calls is possible. That it's not too expensive or too dangerous, it just requires the will to act. Now other species are finding that will. What about the Council? Are they still trying to restrict our operations?" Linda's expression became more serious. "Officially, yes. Vethix's faction is pushing for regulations on unauthorized military deployments. But they're losing ground. The public pressure is too intense. Civilians across the galaxy have seen what's possible, and they're demanding their governments provide the same level of protection." So we keep doing what we're doing? Exactly. Answer every call. Save every life we can. Let the politicians argue while we do the actual work. After the call ended, Jack returned to the bridge. Kyle looked up from the navigation console with a worried expression. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's coming from the Barren Reach about 4 hours away at maximum speed. The Barren Reach was a region of space known for asteroid fields and unstable stellar phenomena. Most ships avoided it. Those who traveled through did so at their own risk. What's the situation? Jack asked. It's a science vessel. Registry shows Moran Collective. They were studying a neutron star when their shields failed. Radiation exposure is critical. They have maybe 6 hours before the crew starts dying. Jack didn't hesitate. Set course, maximum speed. Send word to any other ships in range. We might need backup. As the Valiant turned toward the Barren Reach, Amy spoke up from communications. Captain, I should mention something. The Moran government officially prohibits their citizens from accepting human assistance. There could be political complications. Are there people dying? Yes, sir. Then we go. Politics can sort itself out later. The Valiant raced through space, pushing its engines to the limit. 4 hours felt like an eternity. Jack paced the bridge, watching the countdown timer tick away. Every minute that passed was another minute. Those scientists were being bombarded with deadly radiation. Approaching the coordinates now, Kyle announced. I'm reading the science vessel. Shields are completely down. Hull is taking massive radiation damage. Life signs are weak but present. The view screen showed a small ship tumbling slowly through space, dangerously close to a neutron star. The star was compact and dense, spinning rapidly and throwing off radiation in deadly pulses. That's a difficult extraction, Jack said. We'll need to get in close with our shields at maximum. Kyle, can you plot a safe approach? Working on it, sir. The radiation patterns are unpredictable, but I think I can thread us through. It'll be tight. Do it. The Valiant moved carefully, adjusting its course to avoid the worst of the radiation bursts. Even with shields at full power, the radiation detectors were screaming warnings, but they got close enough to lock a tractor beam on the damaged ship and begin pulling it away. We have them, Kyle reported, but the neutron star's gravity is fighting us. We need more power to the tractor beam. Divert power from weapons, Jack ordered. We don't need guns right now. Get them out of there. Slowly, meter by meter, the Valiant pulled the science vessel away from the neutron star. The radiation levels began to drop as they gained distance. After 20 minutes of careful maneuvering, they were clear. Beam them directly to medical bay, Jack said. Full decontamination protocols. The Moran scientists materialized in the medical bay, already being treated by automated systems that began scrubbing the radiation from their bodies. Dr. Helen Martinez and her team rushed to help, working quickly to stabilize the most critical patients. One of the Moran scientists was conscious enough to speak. His mechanical body was damaged, sparks showing from joints and seams. But his voice synthesizer still worked. You came. Despite our government's prohibition, despite the danger. Why? Jack had transported down to medical to check on the survivors. He looked at the Moran scientist with simple honesty. Because you called for help. That's all the reason we need. Our government will not be pleased. They have made their position clear about human interference. Your government can file a complaint if they want, but you and your team will be alive to hear about it. That's what matters. 3 days later, Jack found himself on Unity Station again, standing in a different kind of meeting. This wasn't the full council chamber. It was a smaller conference room where Ambassador Catherine Wells was meeting with representatives from a dozen species who wanted to discuss something they were calling the Coalition for Humanitarian Response. Councillor Malera led the discussion. We represent 12 council species who believe the time has come for a new approach. The human example has shown us what's possible. Now we want to formalize it. Catherine listened carefully, her diplomat's instincts analyzing every word. What exactly are you proposing? A mutual rescue accord. All signatory species would commit resources to responding to distress calls within their capabilities. We would establish protocols, share technology, coordinate responses. A galaxy-wide system where no call for help goes unanswered. And the species who oppose this? Catherine asked. They will have a choice. Join the Accord or explain to their people why they're refusing to participate in rescue operations. We believe public pressure will bring most of them around eventually. Over the next 2 hours, they worked through the details. It wasn't perfect. There were compromises and limitations. But it was real progress, a fundamental change in how the galaxy approached civilian safety. When the meeting ended, Malera walked with Catherine toward the embassy section. 3 months ago, this would have been impossible. The council would have rejected such a proposal immediately. But the humans changed the equation. You showed us that action was possible, and now we can't go back to the old ways. When will the council vote on this accord? Catherine asked. In 1 week. I believe we have enough support to pass it, though the margin will be narrow. And if it doesn't pass, Malera smiled, then the coalition will implement it anyway. 12 species working together is enough to make a real difference. We'll invite others to join as they're ready. 1 week later, the Galactic Council gathered for the vote. The chamber was packed with representatives, media observers, and civilian advocates who had traveled from across the galaxy to witness this moment. Catherine stood at the human podium, feeling the weight of history. This vote would determine whether the galaxy took a step forward or retreated into the old patterns of indifference. Speaker Theron raised his 6 arms for silence. We will now vote on the Mutual Rescue Accord. All representatives cast your votes. Holographic displays showed the votes as they came in. Green for yes, red for no. Catherine watched the count rise, holding her breath. The Xanthian Concord voted yes. The Talum voted yes. Species that had been skeptical now voted in favor, swayed by pressure from their own people. But the no votes came too. Vethix and the Moran voted no. Other species who feared change, who benefited from the current system, who worried about the costs. The final count appeared on the main display. 24 yes votes, 13 no votes. The Mutual Rescue Accord had passed. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives cheered. Others sat in stunned silence. Catherine felt tears in her eyes. They had done it. The galaxy had changed. Malera came to the human podium, her silver face showing an expression of joy. Congratulations, Ambassador. Your species started this. Now it belongs to everyone. That night, Catherine sent a message to Linda Hayes, Jack Morrison, and every human ship in the fleet. The Mutual Rescue Accord has passed. The galaxy has committed to answering distress calls. We did this. By refusing to accept indifference, by showing what's possible, we changed everything. Well done. Aboard the Valiant, Jack gathered his crew in the mess hall to share the news. When he finished explaining what had happened, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Soon the entire crew was on their feet, applauding. Amy wiped tears from her eyes. We really did change things, didn't we? We showed them a different way, Jack replied. They chose to follow it. Later that night, Jack stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. In his hand was a data pad, showing a message from Captain Velris. Captain Morrison, my people have heard about the Mutual Rescue Accord. We know it happened because humans chose to answer when we called. On behalf of every Talum, every child who survived, every family that was saved, thank you. You gave us more than rescue. You gave the galaxy hope. 6 months after the Mutual Rescue Accord passed, the galaxy looked different. Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, but he wasn't alone anymore. On his view screen were 3 other ship captains, each from a different species, all part of the new Joint Response Fleet. Captain Velris of the Talum ship. Hope's Dawn spoke first. Their injuries from the Kreth attack had healed, leaving only small scars as reminders. Captain Morrison, our sensors are picking up the distress beacon clearly. It appears to be a mining accident on the asteroid station. Approximately 300 workers trapped underground. Confirmed, said Captain Lorix of the Xanthian medical vessel Gentle Light. My medical teams are ready to deploy. We have equipment specifically designed for extraction from collapsed structures. The third captain was surprising. Commander Nexus of the Moran rescue ship. Logical Response had been assigned to the Joint Fleet despite his government's initial objections to the whole concept. His mechanical face showed no emotion, but his actions over the past months had proven his dedication. I have calculated the most efficient rescue pattern, Nexus said. The Valiant will provide security and power generation. Hope's Dawn will coordinate surface operations. Gentle Light will establish the medical center. Logical Response will handle technical aspects of the extraction. With all 4 vessels working together, we can save 97% of the trapped workers. Jack nodded. Then let's do it. All ships, move to positions. The joint fleet worked like a machine, each part supporting the others. It had taken months of training and practice, learning to coordinate between species with different languages, different technologies, different approaches to problem solving. But they had figured it out. Because at the end of the day, everyone wanted the same thing, to save lives. The asteroid mining station was a mess. A structural collapse had sealed 300 workers in the lower tunnels. Air was running out. Time was critical. The Valiant used its powerful generators to provide energy for the rescue operation. Cutting tools, atmospheric processors, medical equipment, all running on human power systems. Hope's Dawn deployed teams to the surface, coordinating with the station's emergency personnel. Gentle Light set up a full hospital in the station's upper levels, ready to treat injuries. Logical Response sent in mechanical drones that could work in areas too dangerous for living beings. 6 hours later, they had pulled all 300 workers out alive. Some had injuries, some had been unconscious from lack of oxygen, but everyone survived. The station manager, a Krelvian with 4 arms and crystalline skin, couldn't stop thanking them. 4 ships from 4 species, working together to save miners you'd never met. 6 months ago, this would have been impossible. Now it's normal. You've changed everything. After the rescue, the 4 captains met in a virtual conference room, their holograms appearing around a digital table. Jack raised a cup of coffee and a toast. Another successful mission. Well done, everyone. The Moran calculations were essential, Velrus said. Without the optimal extraction pattern, we would have lost valuable time. Nexus's mechanical head tilted slightly, the closest he came to showing pleasure. The human power systems were equally essential. Our own generators could not have handled the load, and the Xanthian medical expertise saved several workers who would have died from their injuries. We all contributed, Lorix added. That's the point of the joint fleet. No species can do everything alone. Together, we're stronger. Jack thought about how much had changed in 6 months. When the Mutual Rescue Accord first passed, many people doubted it would work. They said species were too different, that coordination would be impossible, that the costs would be too high. But those people had been wrong. The joint fleet now had over 200 vessels from 18 different species. They had responded to 412 emergencies, saving over 50,000 lives. Pirates' attacks had dropped by 80% in protected zones because the raiders knew that help would come quickly. After the conference ended, Jack found a message waiting from Admiral Linda Hayes. He opened it to find her smiling face on his screen. Jack, I wanted you to be among the first to know. The humanitarian response fleet is now fully operational. All 50 vessels are in service, and they're already making a difference. But there's more. The Secretary General has approved construction of 50 additional vessels. We're doubling the fleet size. Jack felt pride swell in his chest. That's incredible news, Admiral. It gets better. 7 other species have announced similar expansions of their rescue capabilities. The Xanthian are building 20 new hospital ships. The Talim are creating a rapid response network that can get help to anywhere in their territory within 2 hours. Even the Moran, despite their government's continued complaints, are developing new rescue technologies and sharing them with the joint fleet. What about the Council? Are they still trying to limit our operations? Linda's expression became more serious. Vethix's faction has mostly given up. They realize they can't fight public opinion. Civilians across the galaxy have seen what's possible, and they won't accept going back to the old ways. The Council is actually discussing making the Joint Fleet an official council organization with dedicated funding. That would be a huge step forward. It would. But Jack, I want you to remember something. This all started because you and your crew refused to ignore a distress call. One ship, one decision, changed the galaxy. Never forget that individual choices matter. After ending the call, Jack walked through the corridors of the Valiant. He passed crew members who had been working for 18 hours straight, pulling miners out of collapsed tunnels. They looked tired, but satisfied. They knew they had done something important. In the mess hall, he found Sergeant Danny Collins having dinner with several other Marines. Danny waved Jack over to join them. "Captain, did you hear about the memorial?" Danny asked. "What memorial?" "The Talum are building a monument on their homeworld. It's dedicated to everyone who responded to the Tranquil Wanderer distress call. They're carving the names of every crew member from every ship into a wall of stone. They say they want future generations to remember that someone answered when they called." Jack felt a lump in his throat. "That's quite an honor." "There's more. The Xanthian are naming their new hospital ship after Captain Velrus. The Moran are establishing a scholarship program for students studying emergency response, and they're calling it the Human Initiative. Even species we've never directly helped are finding ways to honor what we started." Later that night, Jack received a priority message from Ambassador Catherine Wells on Unity Station. Her face appeared on his screen, and she looked excited. "Jack, you need to see this. It's being broadcast across the entire galaxy." The screen changed to show a news program. The host was a Vishtari journalist, her scales showing blue and green colors, indicating calm and trust. "Tonight, we present a special report on the transformation of galactic society. 6 months ago, a human fleet responded to a distress call that had been ignored by 7 council species. That single action sparked a movement that has fundamentally changed how we approach civilian safety." The program showed footage of rescues from across the galaxy. Human ships pulling damaged vessels out of dangerous situations. Xanthian hospital ships treating disaster victims. Talum rapid response teams arriving within minutes of emergencies. Moran technical specialists solving complex problems. Species working together in ways that had seemed impossible a year ago. Interviews with civilians told the real story. A Krelvian merchant who had been rescued from pirates. A Vishtari colonist whose settlement had been saved from a natural disaster. A Moran scientist who had been extracted from a radiation zone by humans despite his government's prohibitions. They all said the same thing. For the first time in their lives, they felt safe. They knew that if something went wrong, help would come. The galaxy had their back. The program ended with a statement from Council Speaker Theron. The Vishtari leader who had once questioned human actions now spoke with a different tone. "I stand before you today to acknowledge that I was wrong. When the humans first responded to the Tranquil Wanderer distress call, I believed they were acting rashly, without consideration for the complexities of galactic politics. I now understand that they were acting with moral clarity that my government had lost. They reminded us that our first duty is to protect life, not to maintain comfortable systems. The Mutual Rescue Accord exists because humans showed us a better way. On behalf of the Vishtari Concord and my own personal conscience, I thank them." Catherine reappeared on Jack's screen. That broadcast is being seen by trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. The human example has become the standard by which civilizations are now judged. Not by military power or economic strength, but by willingness to help those in need. "That's a heavy responsibility," Jack said. "It is, but if anyone can handle it, humans can. We've been preparing for this our whole history. Every time someone on Earth faced a disaster, others came to help. Every time someone called for rescue, people responded. We're just doing on a galactic scale what we've always done." The next morning, Jack received orders to report to Luna Base for a special ceremony. When he arrived, he found hundreds of ships gathered around Earth's moon. Human vessels, yes, but also ships from dozens of other species. They had all come to witness something historic. Secretary General Richard Barnes stood on a platform overlooking Earth, visible through the massive windows of the Luna Base Assembly Hall. Behind him were representatives from every species in the Mutual Rescue Accord. "Today, we mark 6 months since the Mutual Rescue Accord took effect," Richard began. "In that time, the Joint Fleet has responded to over 400 emergencies and saved over 50,000 lives. But numbers don't tell the full story. What we've really accomplished is a fundamental change in how the galaxy operates. We've moved from a system where distress calls were optional to one where they are answered. From a galaxy where civilians were on their own to one where they are protected. Richard paused, letting his words sink in. This change didn't happen because of governments or committees. It happened because individual people made individual choices. Captain Jack Morrison and the crew of the USS Valiant heard a distress call and decided to answer it. That one decision inspired others. Admiral Linda Hayes mobilized a fleet. Ambassador Catherine Wells challenged the council. Captain Velrus survived and told their story. Each choice built on the others until we reached this moment. The Secretary General gestured to a new flag being raised on a pole outside the window. It showed the Earth flag surrounded by symbols representing every species in the Mutual Rescue Accord. This flag represents not just Earth but a promise that no distress call will go unanswered, that no one will face danger alone, that when you call for help, someone will come. This is the legacy we're building. This is what it means to be part of the galactic community. After the ceremony, Jack found himself standing beside Admiral Paul Carter, looking out at Earth through the window. The planet rotated slowly below them, blue and white and beautiful. The death world that had forged humanity into what they were. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't answered that first call? Paul asked. Sometimes, Jack admitted, the Talum would have died. The Kreth would have continued their raids. Nothing would have changed. One ship, one decision, and now the whole galaxy is different. It wasn't just one ship, sir. It was every ship that followed. Every captain who made the same choice. Every crew member who worked to save strangers. Change doesn't happen because of one person. It happens because people see an example and decide to follow it. Paul nodded slowly. You're right. But someone has to set that example. Someone has to be first. The Valiant was first. That evening, Jack returned to his ship. The crew was preparing for their next patrol, a 3-week mission through sectors that had once been considered too dangerous for civilian traffic. Now, with the joint fleet operating, those sectors were safe. Amy met him on the bridge with a datapad. Captain, we've received 73 requests for escort duty this month alone. Merchant convoys, colony ships, research vessels. Everyone wants human protection. Can we handle that many? If we coordinate with the other joint fleet vessels, yes. We're not alone anymore. There are always allies nearby who can help. Jack sat in his command chair and looked around the bridge. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. They had become experts at their jobs over the past months. But more than that, they had become part of something larger than themselves. Part of a movement that was changing the galaxy. Kyle turned from navigation. Course plotted for our patrol route, Captain. We're ready when you are. Then take us out, Lieutenant. The Valiant pulled away from Luna Base and accelerated toward the stars. Behind it, the joint fleet continued its work. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all dedicated to a simple principle. When someone calls for help, answer. As they entered faster than light travel, Jack thought about the future. The galaxy still had problems. There were still pirates and natural disasters and accidents. There would always be emergencies that needed response. But now there was also hope. Civilians who had once felt abandoned knew they were protected. Species who had once competed were now cooperating. The galaxy was learning that working together was stronger than standing alone. Jack pulled up his personal messages and found one from Captain Velrus. It was short and simple. Captain Morrison, today I watched our children play in a park. They have no fear of the sky anymore. They know that somewhere up there humans are watching. That if danger comes, someone will answer. Thank you for giving them that gift. Thank you for showing the galaxy what's possible when good people refuse to do nothing. Jack saved the message and closed his eyes for a moment. This was why he served. This was why humans had come to the stars. Not to conquer or to dominate, but to protect. To help. To be the ones who answered when others called. The USS Valiant raced through the darkness between stars, carrying its promise forward. And across the galaxy, hundreds of other ships did the same. Each one a light against the darkness. Each one a promise being kept. The Deathworlders had shown the galaxy a new way. Now that way was becoming normal, expected, necessary. The age of indifference was over. The age of response would continue. And humanity, the youngest species in the Council, the newcomers from the dangerous world, had made it all possible. Not through weapons or threats, but through the simple act of caring enough to help. That was the real power of Deathworlders. Not that they could fight, but that they chose to protect. Not that they were strong, but that they used their strength for others. The galaxy had learned that lesson, and it would never forget. Jack saved the message. Tomorrow, the Valiant would resume its patrol. There would be more distress calls, more people who needed help, more chances to prove that the Accord was more than just words on a document. But tonight, he allowed himself to feel pride in what humanity had accomplished. They had come to the stars as the youngest species in the Council. They had been called dangerous, aggressive, too quick to act. And they had used those qualities to save lives, to protect the innocent, to show the galaxy that civilization was measured not by how comfortable you were, but by how you treated those who needed help. The age of indifference was ending. The age of response had begun. And humanity had lit the way forward. Arcess to do it right. After the call ended, Catherine stood by the window of her office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, civilian ships were traveling through space. Some of them would run into trouble. Pirates, mechanical failures, natural disasters. And when they called for help, humans would answer. The galaxy could debate and argue all it wanted. Committees could meet and protocols could be written. But none of that would stop what had started in the Kelmar system. Humanity had shown the galaxy a different way was possible. Now it was up to the rest of the civilizations to decide if they would follow that example or continue with the old ways. Catherine hoped they would choose wisely. But even if they didn't, humans would keep doing what they had always done. They would fight against the darkness. They would protect the weak. They would answer the call. Because that's what Deathworlders did. Kyle looked up from navigation. "Sir, Admiral Carter is requesting all ship captains report to the USS Lincoln for a briefing. He says the Galactic Council has sent an official complaint. They want to discuss our actions." Jack nodded. "Understood. Amy, you have the bridge. I'll be back in a few hours." As he headed to the transporter room, Jack thought about what was coming. There would be difficult conversations, political arguments, debates about protocol and jurisdiction. Some species would be angry. Some would be scared of what humanity represented. But none of that mattered as much as the simple fact that 204 people were alive who would have been dead. That 83 children were safe who would have been orphaned or enslaved. That was what mattered. That was what being human meant. The galaxy could debate all it wanted. Humans would keep answering distress calls. Are this? Get ready for some uncomfortable conversations with alien diplomats. Yes, sir. Jack looked at Captain Velrus being carried to the transporter pad. She was barely conscious, kept alive by human medical technology. In a few hours, she would be in a proper medical facility, receiving care from doctors who had trained for exactly this kind of emergency. The galaxy might not understand why humans had come. They might question the decision, debate the costs, worry about the implications. But Jack knew the truth was simple. Someone had called for help. Humans had answered. That was all there was to it. The view screen changed to show the interior of one of the Kreth vessels. The captain was an insect-like creature with armored segments and sharp mandibles. He looked at Jack with multiple eyes that showed no fear at all. "Human vessel, you are far from your home," the Kreth captain said. His voice came through the translator as clicks and hisses. "This prize belongs to the Bloodfang clan. Leave now, or we will add your ship to our collection." Jack leaned forward in his chair. His voice was cold and hard. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the United Earthship Valiant. You are ordered to release that cargo ship immediately. Surrender, and you will be treated fairly under Galactic Council law. You have 30 seconds to comply." The Kreth captain's mandibles spread wide. The translator interpreted it as laughter. "Brave words from soft creatures. Your council does nothing. They are afraid of us. You should be too."